And so that's how they kind of get invited into places. And a lot of people do, call out to the darkness. So
So,
I was gonna, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so you've been so you lived as an astral parasite, so to speak.
Yeah, she considers herself kind of like a trickster god, like a lower god, like a trickster god. But when I'm looking at her, I consider it more like a parasitical entity because she was feeding off them and she was traveling by blood, like as a virus. So that's why a lot of the
Mm.
energy I feel around her is red.
That's an interesting concept, traveling with the bloodstream inside the bloodstream. That's very
Yeah.
interesting idea to think about, to wrap your mind around. So when you lived inside the bloodstream, so to speak, so what did you catch the feelings of this of the person you were attached to, or could you
I'll,
did you
I
see
can just,
could you
I'll
read
be
his mind?
honest. Yes, I'll be honest. I loved it as a dark entity because that was my life. I loved, infiltrating their lives and making them do bad things or making them, pretty much ruin their own lives. I would stay with them long enough until they ruined their life. And then I would move on to the next victim. And I lived like that, like I said, for thousands of years. I remember one person I infiltrated his life. It was a baker in kind of very old times. He was baking and I made him burn down his house. So things like that we were doing, as a darker entity. But like I said, I didn't know I was evil. Nobody had taught me, about that word because I thought, I was just, I just was, who I was. I didn't know there was a word for that. I just thought that now that I know, though, it's very interesting. And I can see why when those two twins did that examination on me and they said they saw the thing inside me, I can see why they said that now because it's part of me. I can't delete a past life. I can't make it eliminate it. I can't make it go away. So
Yeah.
I can see how they could see it inside me, but they were wrong when they thought it was an attachment. They were trying to, harness and take that attachment from me and, kind of like make it almost like a measurable scientific activity. And that's not possible, because it wasn't separate from me. It was me. That whatever they were seeing was at me and my cellular level. So it's still there. And that's kind of why I can do what I can do now in terms of hosting other entities, because these demons and these entities have told me that whenever I go under hypnosis, it's like completely black where they are. And then when they can see me going under hypnosis because there'll be a huge shining light in this darkness and they travel so quickly to find me because we're almost the same energy. They say I'm the same frequency almost as them, like a kindred spirit, because I'm like them. That's why they don't harm me. They never hurt me. They never try to, they can't because I am one of them. Why would they? When I'm already like them, they can't do that. And that's really strange. I understand how strange it sounds, but at the same time, I consider myself a good person in this life as a human. I'm not that I'm not that thing anymore, but I still am because I can't make it go away. But I'm a very much normal, helpful, what I consider a good person, so it was always very interesting for me to see myself in that position. But now then it helped me understand why they would have chosen me for certain projects. And that's just I was going to tell you about another one that they saw and that I discovered. And it was I was what they considered in the 1400s. I was considered like a physical, like a psychic medium. And in this life, I was just a woman. I had two children. My husband had died, and I was in a village, and it was in Italy, and I was helping a lot of the other villagers because of my ability for psychic ability. I was helping them, speak to loved ones that had passed on and things like that. And somebody must have told because when the Inquisition came through, I was like one of the first people they came and rounded up. And they came to my house and they took me from my children. They dragged me and punched me in the face and, dragged me off to this, dungeon type place. And I got that whole treatment of, being tortured and questioned constantly. And I was so angry. And I was very angry because my children had to go live with my uncle. And he brought them on probably one of the last days I was alive. He brought them to see me. There was a very small hole, like a window where they could see into like the lower dungeon. And he brought them there to see me one last time. And I wish he wouldn't have done that because I know I looked horrible, horrible. They had me hanging from the ceiling by these kind of like chain rope things they had, and my arms were just I was up by my arms. And at that point, I couldn't even feel my arms anymore. They had gone numb, or probably like almost like dead arms, because I had been like, chained for so long. There was no more feeling. And I didn't die from, like, they didn't burn me at the stake or anything. I actually died from starvation and dehydration. So it was a very, I don't know, very emotional, traumatic life. And during that last day, I was so angry because of all the good I tried to do for the world, and I didn't get any help. Nobody stopped them, these men, from doing this to me. And I was so angry, and I called out to the darkness, and I said, whatever can hurt them, do it. So I attached, that dark energy was, around me still, because I wanted them to hurt those people who hurt me. I can see now, being a psychic medium, that life, and having that ability kind of awaken inside of me. I didn't know I could do this until, about 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know it was a possibility for me. I had never known that. But I can see how it been awakened, because of that life. This had, woken back up inside of me.
With all I heard so far about you being this dark entity, that makes me think about consciousness. We are talking
Yes.
about consciousness a lot on the podcast, and most of the time when we talk about consciousness, people talk about it in a very, let's say, romantic kind of way.
Yes.
It's very colorful and bright and peaceful thing. But now you're telling me you've been some kind of dark entity, and
Yes.
you practically infiltrated someone else's consciousness. And
Yes, I did.
yeah,
And
so
it's still possible. Not that I do it very much, because I do consider it the dark arts, but they call it remote influencing. And I can remotely, if there was something I wanted, okay, so if I wanted to remote view somewhere that was secret, I could kind of go into this place and look for a person that was vulnerable and not focused. And you push your energy kind of into that person, and kind of make them either start typing at a computer or look for information that you need. That's completely possible. I've done that before. But I don't do that a lot, because I consider it the dark arts, because I don't want to, push myself onto people, whether I can do it or not. But it's because of that life that this is awakened in me. I feel that part of it was because of that, and also because of MK Ultra and them creating those personalities, and you know me just being able to dissociate so well and leave the body so well, that it was all tied together in creating this full, person, this asset that they could use. So there was one other life that was significant and why they chose me. And I can imagine when they were doing this, how surprising it would be to see a little tiny 6-year-old girl talking about her past lives as a demonic entity, as a psychic medium, and then as another life as a serial killer. So I had a life where I believe it was the late 1700s, early 1800s, that time period. And in this life, I had lost my parents at a very young age, very young. So I had been living on the streets for a long time, and I traveled around everywhere. I traveled everywhere, looking for work, looking for odd jobs in order to feed myself. And I ended up meeting another gentleman, and we had become kind of partners because we had the same type of darkness inside us. So we became very close in that way, because that darkness was in me, and I felt it, and it made me be and want to do things to other people that was, very evil. Like I would want to hurt. And so me and this other gentleman, we pretty much would travel around to villages and find, women alone, and physically harm them, and just keep doing that. We would travel to different cities to do that, and we would find them, out, in those days, a lot of women were, out in the fields by themselves, gathering things. So we were able to find them, and we would just leave them there. And we went to this particular village. We had gotten very careless because we thought we were invincible. We were doing this so often. We went to a particular village, and we were the new people in the village. And we had done that. We had found a woman out by herself, and we attacked her and left her for what. And we ended up going to a pub around the corner, and we were having a good time. But they ended up finding the woman there, and the only new people in town was us. So they put two and two together. They knew it was us. So we ran as quick as we could. and we found a barn, and we locked ourselves in this barn, and we thought it was a good hiding spot. It wasn't. They found us right away, and what they did was lock us in and set the barn on fire. And so I remember trying to climb up towards the top of the barn, and it didn't work. We both ended up, being burned alive, which we deserved. So I mean, imagine being 6 years old or 7 and, saying these kinds of things and relaying this information to people, saying, I did this, I was this. And, I'm telling the story very conservatively, but imagine when I was, giving the full details, of the situation to somebody, and they were probably, kind of dumbfounded at what they had discovered, inside people. What you can discover inside people is amazing. You can see all their past lives. You can find these things. Because if I could find it as a child, they can definitely find it using their techniques and their technology that they have. They're very advanced in technology that we have no idea. Literally, the public has no idea how advanced some of the technology is that these private military companies have obtained for their various reasons.
I'm curious, how do you dream? What are your dreams like, especially in the context of the MK Ultra thing, when you say there are all these different personalities? What are your dreams
Yes,
like?
it's so interesting. It could be anything, and then some of the memories seep through your subconscious, so you will dream of them. Some people say that if you're dreaming, it's just a dream. No, I know the difference between a dream and something else. I know that. And I think a lot of other people would know it if you were experiencing it. You would know the difference between a dream and then something seeping into your subconscious. Because there would be times where I'd just be meditating, basic meditation where I started, for my own anxiety, was learning to do that. And as soon as I got close, I would hear a voice in my head, but not really an auditory. I call it a mental message because it wasn't particular auditory, like outside of my external hearing. And it would say, if you come any closer, we're going to take everything from you. So that's when I noticed that something or someone was using what we consider V2K, voice to skull technology, to place those, to give me that message. You need to back off. They would say, pretty much, Olivia needs to back off. She's going too far. She's getting too close. She's getting too many memories. So when I first started getting all these memories, I was getting a lot of those mental messages, and they wanted to try to hurt myself and, pretty much destroy myself, because that was the only way they could see me backing off of this. So they would try to place that in my mind. But that particular programming didn't work for me. It didn't work on me. So they weren't able to, solidify that inside myself. The things that did scare me a little is when they threaten somebody I care about. Then, of course, that gets my attention. But they know that. They test different things, and they know what will, make you afraid.
Is there a lot of, let's say, astral traveling going on?
Yes, yes. And I got really good at that. And there, when I first started this, there is no possible way that I ever thought I could do anything like this. It just wasn't in my realm of possibility. I just didn't know. I awakened it within myself with hypnosis, and I awakened everything they had done to me and pulled out of me. I awakened to it again. So it was almost like living so many different lives at one time, because I was starting to, meet. And I still, once you awaken these things in yourself, you still feel it. You can feel, like, I can feel sometimes this dark Jinn. If I get a little bit like towards a trance, I can feel her, feel that energy, feel that strength that she has. And that's one thing that they do possess, is strength. Some of these elder gods, they have a lot of strength because they're so powerful, based on how many followers they had, how much they're revered and worshiped.